Welcome Rotarians and guests to the Rotary Club of Seattle, the fourth oldest and one of the world's largest Rotary clubs, where we embrace service above self and are connecting for good. Virtual reality is our topic today, the last in this Rotary Year series of business programming that focuses on innovation. So what is VR? As I understand it, virtual reality is a computer-generated environment that lets us experience a different reality. And the technology is no longer futuristic. It's being widely deployed. In fact, I just returned yesterday from Atlanta and the Rotary International Convention, where Rotary is rolling out a virtual reality experience to help tell our story. So it was fun to see the application in a philanthropic sense. But today, we'll have an opportunity to see how it's being used in business, for medicine, for entertainment, and for construction. So for the moment, though, we're in this reality, and I'd like to invite Nick Anderson to come up. He is a poet, and he is going to share his verses with us today. And when he's finished, please remain standing, because Kim Moore is going to lead us in song, and she's going to be accompanied by Burr Stewart on the piano. But first, Nick, our member poet.
Thank you, fellow Rotarians. I'm really honored to share a poem that I wrote for my wife about a year ago. You all represent so much knowledge and wisdom and experience, and there's so many lessons learned in this room, and today I'm going to share with you a lesson that life has taught me that has really allowed me to be a better husband and father through some of life's most difficult times. The poem is titled "The Lesson of Life." Look at the stars, little girl, and what do you see? Imagine your future and what will be. When you're flying, eyeing, and spying high above, look down, see all the people, and feel the love. The world is small from so far away, but standing on it here, it doesn't seem that way. It's so big. It's too big to take it all in. There's so many. There's too many. It just makes your head spin. How can we help them, the big and the small? How can we possibly help them all? Well, Grandpa would say, how do you eat an elephant? I asked him how, just for the hell of it. Well, son, one bite at a time. An elephant goes down just fine. One bite to start and one to finish is all it takes to diminish the overwhelming, the insurmountable, impossible, improbable, intolerable. The work of a lifetime begins with a bite, just one step towards doing what's right. Along the way, life will challenge you. It will frighten and delight you. So take it all in from high in the sky. And when you see that boy in the corner, you tell him hi. Come here, little boy. You can cry with me. I will stand with you in pain. You'll see. Because I love you, little boy, when you are happy and when you're sad. And I will still love you when life hurts you bad. You see, the lesson of life is simply simple. It's easily easy. The lesson of life is love. Just love. Give it freely.
So it's now my pleasure to introduce Cindy Runger, who's normally here in a leadership class. Today she is here as our personal reporter to the world of augmented reality. Cindy.
So I met Matt Hooper a few years ago when his firm hosted a panel discussion on the mind-blowing world of esports. So fellow Rotarians, just get ready for a very fun experience this afternoon. Not only does Matt have his fingers on the pulse of how content is experienced, but with the stroke of his legal pen, he's in the mix of affecting how we interact with the world. Matt is founding partner of IME Law, a firm shaping the future of film, video games, and virtual, augmented, and mixed virtual reality. In addition to serving as deal maker for major movies, starring the likes of Julia Roberts and Jennifer Aniston, Matt represents numerous immersive media clients, particularly in their virtual reality entertainment space, including internationally recognized VR filmmakers, producers, and directors. He's also spoken globally on the business of VR, including at the Sundance Film Festival and the VR show in London. Matt, you make lawyers look cool. So, here to give us an insider's look at immersive technology, Matt Hooper.
Thank you, Cindy. I'll try to live up to that now. And thank you for having me here today. And that poem and that song at the beginning were just beautiful, so I appreciate that. If you are not familiar with immersive media, remember where you are sitting today, because what we're going to talk to you about today is what is going to be and what is being called the fourth industrial revolution. Probably the biggest thing since computers that's going to affect your lives. So we're going to have fun with this today. We're going to talk about it, have a good time. How many of you, prior to this, in the audience have actually heard of immersive media, that phrase, immersive media? Oh, great. Okay, a lot of you. And how many of you have had the opportunity to actually experience virtual reality, augmented reality, or mixed reality? Oh, fantastic. This is growing. I should have known better with being in Seattle. This is great. Well, we're going to start with a brief overview for everyone, just so we're all on the same page. So with virtual reality, when we say immersive media or immersive tech, we're talking about virtual reality, we're talking about augmented reality, and mixed reality, all three of those. That's what immersive tech or immersive media is. And when we talk about virtual reality, what virtual reality is it is basically putting you into a different environment. So imagine you put on these goggles, and the next thing you know, once you put these on, you are in Paris, you are on a beach, and everywhere you look, all around you, you are in that environment. It's like, has anybody seen The Matrix? It's like being in the Matrix, especially now with volumetric virtual reality and video game-based virtual reality. You are literally in another world. Augmented reality is a little bit different. With augmented reality, you put glasses on, or you look through your phone, and you see reality. So if I had the glasses on, I'd see all of you. But what would happen is there are holograms that pop up in your line of vision. And so right now, today, you're probably going to go back to your office or your home, and you'll type on your computer. I promise you that in the next few years, because it currently exists and people are currently doing it, you will no longer be using computers like that. You will instead put on your glasses, up will pop a hologram of a keyboard, and up will pop as many screens as you want. And you will be able to type, using just your glasses, on your holographic keyboard onto all of these different holographic screens. And then you'll hit print, and it'll go print. That is what will happen. And eventually you won't print, because everyone will just work in a holographic reality. Finally, you'll have mixed reality. Mixed reality is different. Mixed reality is where, it's also called merged reality. It's where the holograms that you're seeing, so I've got those glasses on, I'm seeing all of you, but the holograms are anchored to reality. So for example, if you were to go to Microsoft right now and you bought their HoloLens technology, you would be able to have a conversation with your friend who is in Europe and actually holoport their image and hologram into your room, and they would be able to walk around and talk to you in the room with you. It's an incredible technology. So that's the future, and we're going to, in a minute here, we're going to play a video, and when we do, you'll see in that video a motorcycle sitting on a desk, and that's an example of merged or mixed reality, where you actually have it in the environment sitting somewhere that you can interact with it. Today we're going to talk about three main areas. There are plenty of areas, though, as we'll discuss, but three main areas. We're going to talk about healthcare, entertainment, and construction and real estate development, which obviously many of you in this room know a lot more about than I do. And we're also going to have the opportunity to learn from three incredible experts in the space, Ryan, Mary, and Boaz, who are going to come up, and we're going to have the chance to speak with them for a little bit. But without further ado, it probably makes the most sense for us to go straight to the video. So can we play the video?
There are basically three different flavors of VR. There's virtual reality, which through the use of a headset transports you somewhere that you are not. There's augmented reality, or AR. Think of it as Google Glass. It puts information onto reality, enables you to see something that is invisible. And then there's mixed reality. Mixed reality is something that Microsoft is after with the HoloLens. You can look at actual reality, but it can put a holographic image on top of reality and present to you information that is otherwise invisible. Clearly the first iterations of VR are in gaming, but I think the real excitement about it long term, when people talk about this being a platform on the order of the mobile phone or even the internet itself, that sort of presupposes that it's going to be much bigger than gaming. In the course of reporting my story, I visited Lockheed Martin in Orlando. Now, Lockheed invests a lot of money in VR. They train soldiers through VR. It's a lot less expensive, and it can be just as effective. NASA is helping its engineers figure out how to fix satellites, for example. You have car companies that are using it as a way, as a virtual test drive. You have retailers that are helping people figure out how to redesign their homes or how to shop or visit, bring catalogs to life, for example. So really the applications are really pretty far-ranging. They're all very new. Everybody's trying to figure out the rules of engagement, but there's a lot of money and effort going into it.
And so, as you can see from the video that was produced by Fortune, there is a lot of money going into it. And of course, when you have a lot of money going into it, you also have a lot of very important companies getting behind it. So who's getting behind it? Well, Google, one of the first industry giants to get into VR and AR. Google has its VR headset, the Google Daydream, and also has created an inexpensive way to experience VR with its Google Cardboard, which for $15 to $25 allows almost anybody with a smartphone to be able to experience VR. So it's an early issue with VR was it was very expensive. They've started to eliminate that issue. Facebook kind of catapulted everything forward when they decided to purchase Oculus, which was a headset manufacturer, for $2 billion a couple years back. And they've since said that over the next decade, they're going to put another $3 billion into the industry. You look at Sony. Sony has the PlayStation. It's a very popular game console. If any of you have kids or any of you are video gamers yourselves, you know that Sony has the PlayStation. Well, they've created a headset that goes along with that, and they've sold and shipped 2 million of them, I think, just in Q4 of last year. You also look at Microsoft. A couple of you may have heard of that little company. Well, Microsoft has the HoloLens, and the HoloLens, along with Magic Leap, is leading the mixed reality world. And so we look at all of these different companies and what they're doing, but honestly, how does it affect Seattle? Well, Facebook and Oculus just opened a very, very large office right near the stadiums. You see HTC just opened a large office in Pioneer Square. These companies are all moving here. Why? Because we have the best leaders in tech in the nation. People are moving all of their VR here. So it affects you every single day that you deal with traffic, or that you hope the economy continues to grow, or that you build a new building. VR and immersive tech, all of that is going to affect that. But how much, right? I mean, are we talking about $1 billion? Are we talking about $2 billion? Like, how big is this going to be? $5 billion? I know, I was kidding. The actual growth is going to be, they say, by 2020, somewhere around $120 billion industry. To give you some idea of scale, it was $5 billion last year. So you're going from $5 billion in worldwide revenue to $120 billion, and that's low end, that's TechCrunch. When you go to like IDC or any of the companies that do big in statistics, $162 billion by 2020. The CAGR on that, the compound annual growth rate, is insane. So as we look through this, and we keep moving, how's this happening? Well, when you look at the growth of users, by 2018, it is anticipated that 171 million people will be using this, and that is going to grow exponentially year after year after that. And how is that working? Like, where is it going? Is it just video games? No. It's education, it's retail, it's engineering and healthcare. It's all of these different places where software sales are going to go off the charts as people start to use this more and more. So when we look at a couple different articles about a couple of the different sectors that are using this right now, we can see that, first, architects. Of course you're going to use it. Why? Because if you can build your building in augmented reality or in virtual reality, and you have the ability to build your entire commercial development first and see exactly what it's going to look like and tour it and walk through it, you can say, oh my gosh, I thought this window was a great idea here, but it turns out that at 7 p.m. every single day in the fall, the sun's going to come straight through and be blinding, so let me shift the window over 2 feet. Do you know how much money that saves, how much time that saves? You're going to be able to do that. And Boaz and some of our experts will be able to talk about that more. You know, you have Qualcomm and Lionsgate putting together VR entertainment experiences. You have virtual reality in the video game industry. It's massive. Instead of sitting in your living room playing a video game, you're now in the video game getting attacked by robots or whatever else wants to attack you. Or, in the alternative, if you're doing games for good, you can have the opportunity to learn in a different way, and we're going to talk about that in a second. When you look at what's happening in healthcare, and Ryan is going to speak to that a bit for us today, physicians are using it to change everything. They're finding at Stanford and at other centers that virtual reality can change the way the brain works. It can change the way that everything functions. It can actually, what we'll learn about in a little bit, actually rewire nerves in people who are paralyzed. It's unbelievable. Digital publishing, the New York Times is using virtual reality as well. And now, if you're NBA fans, NBA will be allowing you to be able to watch NBA games in virtual reality. Virtual reality democratizes experiences. That's what it does. It democratizes experiences because it doesn't matter if you're in a hospital bed or if you're sitting in your home, you can be on the Great Wall of China in that environment by just putting on virtual reality lenses. One last thing, because it seems like we're moving to a point where we're going to be introducing our panelists, is what the United Nations is doing. And what the United Nations is doing is pretty amazing, because when I heard what you guys are doing in Rotary, in the philanthropic areas, especially with polio, VR is an empathy machine. If you remember nothing else from today, remember this. Traditional media creates sympathy. You watch a movie, you feel bad for the people in it. Virtual reality creates empathy because it lets you experience what those individuals are experiencing. And when you look at, for example, Clouds Over Sidra, which was a virtual reality experience that dealt with refugees from Syria, and you look at what happened when the UN put that project together, they expected to raise a certain amount of money by bringing leaders together and have them in VR in that space. They raised $3.8 billion. $3.8 billion, 70% more than they had ever anticipated by using virtual reality. And the executive director of IME, Jessie Irwin, who's over at this table, can speak to you about it more. She was recently the executive producer of Tree, which was at Sundance, TED, and at Cannes, which dealt with deforestation and virtual reality and empathy. So I would encourage you to talk to her about that. So it looks like we're at a point where we're going to bring our panelists on. So you guys are going to get to see me scroll quickly through a bunch of different articles that are something that our panelists will be able to talk about. This is healthcare and all of the different things that are happening in healthcare, medical imaging, and Ryan will be able to speak to that, all the different areas in healthcare that are being affected. With entertainment, you have a small growth in box office, but a huge growth in VR. And so as we scroll through some of those articles here, Mary will talk about the stuff going on at Knott's Berry Farm. And we'll talk about Apple and some of the other exciting things going on in that space. And then we'll also be able to talk about the construction industry and the development industry, where you can see the numbers that are coming up our way. And we'll scroll through those articles quickly because, again, Boaz will be able to speak to these, so we won't have to go through them in any level of detail here right now. So let's go ahead and introduce our panelists. So the first panelist I'm going to introduce to you is Ryan. Come on up, Ryan. Ryan James. Ryan James is the co-founder of PearMed, a startup focused on developing mixed and virtual reality software resources for improving doctor and patient education. He is also a PhD candidate in biomedical and health informatics at UW and focused on determining how mixed reality can improve medical practices. Recently, PearMed, Ryan's company, partnered with Seattle Children's to implement their technology into children's systems. Next, Mary Jessie, the Chief Strategy Officer for VR Studios. Headquartered in Bellevue, VR Studios is a global leader in immersive location-based entertainment with 40 systems installed in 13 countries. They provided the VR experience for Universal Orlando's Halloween Horror Nights 26 and VR Showdown in Ghost Town, the nation's first permanent free-roaming VR attraction in the nation's oldest theme park, Knott's Berry Farm. And then finally, we have Boaz Ashkenazi. Boaz, the co-founder of Studio 216, a digital agency and full-service virtual and mixed reality production studio here in Seattle. Boaz leads the development team that creates mixed reality and virtual reality assets for Studio 216, as in the process of building a new augmented reality platform for businesses called Altura. So each of your companies are influencing the way business is conducted in healthcare, entertainment, and construction and development. So I'm hoping maybe you could each tell us just a little bit about your company. So Ryan, let's start with you.
Hello. First of all, just thank you all for inviting us here. Really excited to be here. I'm the co-founder and CTO of ParaMed, and this is my team right over here. And as was mentioned earlier, we truly believe that these technologies are changing the way that humans interact with computers on a fundamental level. And nowhere is that more important than in the hospital, where physicians today currently understand medical problems by viewing flat images on a two-dimensional computer screen. And so they're forced to build this 3D mental model of their patients. And building that model is sometimes error-prone and can be too time-consuming. And so what we do is we take those images out of the computer screen, build a three-dimensional hologram, and allow the physician to interact with that hologram in very natural ways. And could you cue the video, please? And so instead of using a mouse and keyboard to understand their patients, physicians can reach out and grab their patient's heart or their patient's brain, slice through it, even put their head inside of the patient's heart to understand what it looks like from the inside. And that completely changes the way that you understand your patients and changes the way that you can communicate with them. And so we're really excited about this area and really excited about our partnership with Seattle Children so we can explore this in more depth.
Great. And Mary, maybe you can tell us a bit about what you're doing.
Okay, great. So as Matt said, I'm with VR Studios. We're a company in Bellevue, about 25 people, been around a few years. And he was really correct in saying that there is a huge growing ecosystem here in Seattle that has great impact. And in fact, we are actually the center of the virtual reality and augmented reality world if you talk to technology people even throughout the world. I mean, Seattle is known, and it's really an exciting opportunity for the region, both economically and to have great impact. So one really important point of distinction I'd like to make, because I'm not sure if it's completely clear. There's consumer VR, which is, attached to the game consoles and something that primarily, gamers are using, but small, I wouldn't say inexpensive, but devices that you use in the home to, participate in virtual reality, mainly in gaming at this point. And then there are commercial systems, B2B, systems that you sell, that we all are selling to businesses for some particular business purpose. So what our company does is we sell attractions to location-based entertainment operators, and those would include theme parks, they include family entertainment centers like Dave & Buster's, they include cinemas, so movie chains are dramatically changing, they're adding VR attractions, and also casinos. Casinos is a huge area of growth for adding in, if you think of the type of attractions they have today, adding in virtual reality attractions. So we actually sell the solutions, end-to-end, one-stop shop, and just so you can kind of see what that looks like. It's definitely not something you put in your home, and this isn't a very dressed up one, but I have an example in a video of a system that we demoed up in Canada at Consumer VR show last year, and we literally had 5-hour lines, people waiting in line for 5 hours to do a 3-minute experience, and they came out happy about that. So it tells you how amazing VR can be. So if you could roll that video, that'd be great.
So, Mary, thanks for bringing that video and telling us a bit about what you're doing at VR Studios. Boaz, can you tell us a bit about Altura and what you're doing with Studio 216?
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm Boaz Ashkenazi. I'm co-founder of Studio 216. And we are an immersive agency building different kinds of immersive tech for architecture, commercial real estate, manufacturing. And so a lot of the work that we do is on both sides of the design phase of construction and then on the sales and marketing side as well. And so we are looking at across all different devices using both VR, AR, MR, and trying to visualize space. I'm an architect by training and moved to Seattle to become an architect, and then started this company to help architects visualize. And we started this company in 2005, pre-iPhone. So we've seen a lot of changes in the technology over time, and I'm super excited to be sitting on the panel with these folks and being in Seattle at this moment.
And you have to see if you can meet up with Boaz afterwards if you do anything with construction and development, because he has an app here that he can show you that's pretty spectacular. So for all of the panelists, each of you are focused on harnessing immersive tech to advance the industries you serve. Can you share an example of a project or partnership you've worked on that integrates immersive technology? I know, for example, Ryan, there's a recent spinal surgery you did, or people did, based on your tech. I'm sure there are multiple other examples too. So.
Yes, that is, I think, the most impactful thing we've done just for us, because it showed us how incredible this technology really can be. So there was a 1-year-old baby who has this really unfortunate growth in her lower spine, and the growth has grown around her spinal nerves in a very, very complex way. So you can imagine this is a very three-dimensional problem. But when you view that problem on a computer screen and try to understand it with a mouse and keyboard, it's very, very difficult. And so what we did is we took those scans, and working with a group at the University of Washington, we created this three-dimensional model of her lipoma and or the growth and her spinal nerves and all the surrounding structures. And then we put her family and her doctors into virtual reality. And everyone understood the problem much better. We're setting up a pilot with her doctors right now because they want to continue using this technology. And her family still brings our software into his visits when he can, because it helps him communicate better with his doctors. And so that was a really, really incredible experience. And we're actually going hiking with that family later this year. So it's been great.
And imagine with that technology, if you can take 2D CT scans and MRIs, turn them into 3D, put them in a virtual environment, and then once you put them in a virtual environment, be able to practice, have your surgeons practice 100, 200 times to make sure that with millimeter-specific precision, they're able to do the surgery right. I mean, for medical malpractice alone, the opportunities there. Mary, can you explain a specific example of something amazing you guys are doing in immersive tech?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm really lucky because I get to work in entertainment with VR. You know, it's so rough heading out to theme parks and, you know, experiencing the rides. I'm a theme park junkie, so it's so much fun. And we've done some incredible projects. We are deployed all over the world, over 40 systems, 13 countries, and that's growing every day with zero advertising, which is pretty stunning. I've never been involved with a startup where the customers literally come to you, and very large customers like Universal Studios, which was a blast, and that we did a project with them last fall. But I want to mention the one that just opened April 1st. So this was with Knott's Berry Farm, and what they were doing, they installed 8 of our systems as a permanent attraction, and we were replacing their old laser tag facility. And we created a custom game with them that really drew upon physical elements in their park and historical elements. They're a very old theme park. They have a very loyal base of regional fans and guests, and it turned out to be an amazing experience. So if you happen to be down in Knott's Berry Farm and you go through VR Showdown in Ghost Town, that's the work of this little company in Bellevue. And if you aren't getting down there, perhaps you could go to Muckleshoot Casino. So we have a system installed. It's advertised as VRcade at Muckleshoot Casino. Those guys are fabulous, and they've been great local partners.
Great. And Boaz, same question for you, a specific example of how you've used the tech.
Yeah, one of the best local examples is a partnership that we did with Microsoft, Skanska, and Studio 216. And the hole's in the ground right now across the street from the Seattle Art Museum. The project is called 2&U. And it's a tower that's going to be raised off the ground about 80 feet. And what we did was we built a mixed reality experience using the HoloLens. And it was specifically for the sales and marketing team to help explain the project to office tenants and retail tenants. And so you walk into an experience center that really looks empty, and you put the headset on, and all of a sudden in that space, the building and the surroundings and the first-person experiences of all the spaces come to life in holographic form. And so the interesting thing about the project for me was it's very different than virtual reality, because with mixed reality and with the HoloLens, you can see everybody. You're not looking at their avatars. You're looking at individuals. And it makes for a much different sales experience when there's a personal connection between people, and they can share a digital experience as well. And so I think that as we talk about the differences between virtual, augmented, and mixed, there's some kind of fundamental differences about how people interact that could be really important depending on the kind of business interaction that you're involved in.
Great, thanks, Boaz. So it looks like we're pretty much out of time. So at this point in time, we don't even have time for questions? Okay, so if you have questions and you want to stay after, the panelists will be available. I'll be available. And thank you for having us. I hope that maybe next time we can do some demos so you can actually experience VR. It'd be fun to watch all of you walking around in virtual reality. We'd enjoy that, and maybe we can figure out a way to do that. So thank you so much for having us.
Well, I mentioned before I was out in Atlanta for the RI convention, and it was very inspiring. And perhaps the most inspiring speaker yesterday was Andrew Young. He was the former mayor of Atlanta. He was a member of Congress. He was the first African American to represent the U.S. at the United Nations. And he spoke about peace. And he had lots to say. I don't know if any of you follow President-elect Mark Wright's Twitter feed, but Mark's Twitter tweet yesterday was, "I wish this guy would never stop talking." It was one of those speeches where you wished it would just go on and on. It was wrapped. I mean, there were 20,000 people in this huge hall, and you could hear a pin drop because he was so compelling. So I can't do that, but I can tell you what he was saying. And in a nutshell, the one takeaway of all the things he said, he quoted, "Cast down your bucket where you are and solve the problem that is in your path." That's what we do as Rotarians. And so I encourage us, with big thanks to our service committee chairs and all the members of our service committees, to cast down our buckets and let's take care of the problems we see in front of us. And as the RI director has tagged us, let's be Rotarians. Let's be people of action. See you next week for the Art Fair. We're adjourned.